Hey everyone, welcome to Mountain Beast Mysteries. In today's video, I wanted to talk about where you're most likely to find Sasquatch. Say you're an amateur investigator or you're like a Bigfoot enthusiast and you wanted to get out into the bush and do some investigating and to do some searching. Where are you going to go to do that? I would say first, obviously you want to look at where, reports are coming from. And if there's an area with a concentration of reports, that's a good start. And then once you get past that point of figuring out where these things are happening and where they're actually being spotted, what I like to do is I like to go on Google Earth and look at some satellite imagery of the area. Back when I first started doing all this and, making these little documentary films, I didn't really know where to go and what to do. I had an idea that British Columbia was a really good place to start just because the whole province is covered in forest and there's Bigfoot reports everywhere, especially on Vancouver Island. And I even remember a long time ago I had sent a message to Jeff Meldrum and I'm like, where should I even begin looking for one of these things? And he's just I think he said something along the lines of pick a spot where there's forest, which is obviously anywhere in the Rocky Mountains and in western Alberta and into British Columbia, because when we think of Sasquatch we think of a forest dwelling being, something that only exists in wooded areas and in mountainous regions for the most part. But what I like to do is go on Google Earth, and this is what I did when I first started out. Is I went on Google Earth and I think what I was initially trying to do was to locate the site of the famous tree structures that you see in Survivorman Bigfoot. I didn't know where they were, but I had a general idea. But what I was doing on Google Earth was I was looking for areas that looked like they hadn't been logged at all. I was just looking for areas where it was just untouched wilderness and just a blanket of trees. And so I found an area on Google Earth that was just that. It was right on the edge of the Rockies, not quite into the mountains yet. It was more like foothills, and it was just kind of a hilly landscape. It was rolling hills, but everything was covered in trees, and it was just a beautiful patch of wilderness that hadn't been touched by the logging industry yet. And I'm like, that's probably a really good spot. That's, if I was a Sasquatch, I would want to hide out there. And, years went by and I actually found out where the Bigfoot tree structure location was, where, you have these weird tree structures that may or may not be built by Bigfoot, but then you also have a lot of Bigfoot reports, of actual encounters and people witnessing these things firsthand. But it was funny because the tree structure area was actually extremely close to that area that I picked on Google Earth, to do research. It was actually right beside there. So is that a coincidence? Maybe. But I think you would have really good luck if you did the same thing, if you went on Google Earth and looked at the satellite images and found a spot that looked relatively untouched and remote and hard to get to, that didn't have a lot of industry in it. A place that would look like a great hiding spot. Now, I also think, obviously, you want to look at your water sources and you want to find out what kind of wildlife are in the area. Because if Sasquatch, is a flesh and blood being, you want to look at, what is it eating and where is it getting its water? It has to get it from somewhere. So you want to look into that. And also, I figure that Sasquatch would like to have the high ground, and would want to maintain some sort of tactical advantage over people, where it can observe people while remaining, hidden and elusive. It wants to have that high ground and it wants that advantage, and it wants to be able to keep an eye on its environment and keep an eye out for any sort of threat. So, if you find a place, like I said, with no logging or, industry, a large, basically just patch of untouched woods, and where it would also have a tactical advantage, like a high point or a place where it can observe its surroundings, all around in every direction, basically. If you find an area like that, with enough, water sources and like wildlife around to sustain itself, then that's probably a really good area. You could go really deep into the mountains like I do, but I'm not sure if that gives you a huge advantage over some of these other spots. The terrain is, more tricky when you go deeper into the mountains, and you still get lots of reports on like logging roads and in areas that aren't super deep into the wilderness. So I don't know. If you're a being that wants to stay hidden from people, you'd think you'd want to be really, really far away from them, deep into the mountains, somewhere tucked away, potentially like in a cave or something somewhere. But at the same time, it seems like just any area that is relatively remote and away from roads. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a mountainous area, just somewhere where it can remain concealed and hidden, and at the same time sustain itself. That's, I guess, that's pretty much all one can do, right? And then eventually you'll maybe have an encounter, maybe you'll find tracks, and then there you go, you found your spot where you can conduct your investigations. The biggest thing is you have to narrow it down. Like, you'll start off with a big area where reports are coming out of, and then you'll have a closer look at that, maybe pick a few spots that you think would be good, and you'll have to check them all out, maybe do investigations at each one of those places. It might take a long time before you find one spot that's really good. Some spots that you think would be really good are not the greatest, and then some spots that you don't think are really good end up having like really strange things happen. So it's kind of just trial and error to a certain degree. But that's basically my method of finding locations. Also, sometimes you'll see videos online, you'll find out where other people are going and having success, and maybe you'll want to check out those areas. That happens a lot in Alberta. Everyone wants to go to the tree structure site, and everyone wants to see that area, but the truth is, with that area nowadays, nothing's really happened in a long time at that spot. Like, it's dead. Who knows why? It could just be because lots of people are frequenting that area. But I personally haven't had anything weird happen at that spot. And I can go there by myself now, and I don't even get like creeped out anymore, So it is possible that they kind of moved on from that location. I have been frequenting the Ruby Falls area. It's where I want to film this Bigfoot Quest for the Wild Man documentary series. And, I've picked that area specifically because of stuff I've heard from other people. They've said people have seen them there. Somebody found the cave full of bones, apparently. And that's what I want to find. I want to find that cave, and I would hope to have some sort of face-to-face encounter with one of these things and, hopefully get it on video. That's my goal. But yeah, like, that location is all from, the words of other people and the advice of other people. So that's why I want to go there and keep investigating that spot. Plus, it is like super remote. So, if you were Sasquatch wanting to stay hidden, there's lots of areas in there to do it. And, who knows? We might have success, we might not. Success might come from another area. Like, it can be weird though. Sometimes in areas that are more high traffic, like areas where lots of people like to go hiking, you'll have weird things happen in those areas, and it almost seems as if maybe some of these creatures are curious of people, so they'll come, close to the highway or closer to these hiking trails and like check people out and see what's going on. And then there's theories that Bigfoot can exist anywhere. It's a spiritual being. It's almost like an entity. Like, it can materialize anywhere, it can vanish into thin air, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in the woods. There's even people that go so far as to say that Bigfoot visits them in their homes, in their houses. Personally, I think we're getting a little carried away there, but I guess anything's possible. Who knows? I'm going to keep looking, out in the mountains where the reports come from, where people actually, see them, and where the footprints are found. Because, I can't gather evidence really of a spiritual Sasquatch, unless I film it vanishing or appearing. But I can document, physical evidence and trace evidence, whether it be footprints or, hair samples, or maybe scat, or, vocalization. That's the kind of stuff I can get out in the wilderness that I don't think I'd be able to get, you know, in a town or in someone's home. But nonetheless, that's basically what I would do to find a good location to go looking for these creatures. Because I get asked this all the time, like, where do I even start? Like, I want to go out looking for Bigfoot and kind of doing what you're doing. You know, how do I find a good spot to go looking for this creature? And, you know, that's it. Find out where the reports are, narrow it down from there, you know. Look at different features of the land, you know, where the water sources are. Figure out what kind of animals are around. Even you could find out like what types of vegetation are edible and which ones are more like calorie dense. There was a really good Canadian bushcrafter, Morris Kahansky, and he was a wilderness expert, like survival expert. And one of my friends, before he passed away, one of my friends did one of his courses and got to meet him and talk with him. And apparently he said, like, if Sasquatch exists, it's going to exist in a spot where there's bear root. Now, I don't know the actual like scientific name for bear root, and there could be different bear roots in, you know, other areas in different countries. But he was referring to a root in like Western Canada. And apparently it has lots of calories in it. And, you know, wildlife like bears will dig up this root, that's why they call it bear root, to survive. It's a great food source. Because a Bigfoot would be a massive creature and it would need a lot of calories to sustain itself. So that's another thing. Like, it might not just be eating meat, it could be eating roots and plants and, you know, berries and all sorts of things. Anyways, I'm sure you guys get the idea of what I'm trying to say here. If you have any other, you know, thoughts on this or any other suggestions for myself or other people on, you know, how to actually find one of these things, you can let me know in the comments down below. If you want to support Mountain Beast Mysteries, you can do so through the link in the video description or through the PayPal link on the main channel banner. Thanks for watching this video, guys. We'll see you next time on Mountain Beast Mysteries.